All right, for more on this, we're joined now in studio by energy experts Mthunzi Luthuli. Mshibe, good to have you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Thabo.
Are we beginning to turn a corner in terms of additional generation capacity, as the minister says?
Look, I don't think so. I think that the minister is counting his chickens before they hatch. Yeah. And I'm sorry to use that expression.
At this time, with the avian flu.
But, you know, I think we first need to see a stabilization of the system. Yeah. You see, right now, we move from no load shedding to stage 2, 3, and 4 load shedding. In fact, they tell us ahead of time that on Monday you will be on stage 2 and on Tuesday you will be on stage 4. That volatility does not indicate a turning of the corner. I think that we have to start seeing stabilization and removal of that volatility, and then we can say we're starting to turn the corner.
I think as a country we want to take all the wins, the little wins. I mean, there's a big issue now around the return of Kusile Unit 3. You remember when you were here and we had the panel, the conversation was around the fact of whether or not, even when those 3 units come back online, they will be able to give us the 800 megawatts that they were actually designed for, which when they were on now, they were not currently giving us that.
Yeah. This time around, I think they will give us 800 or very close to 800 megawatts. That's the first thing. Look, I do think that we have to, you know, rejoice for every bit of good news that we get. But we should be careful not to praise mediocrity. You know, the minister was saying that the unit was brought back, I don't know, two months ahead of schedule. Yeah. Come on, the project is 10 years late. It's 10 years late. The Kusile was supposed to have been completed in 2013. So you can't be talking of completing things ahead of schedule. That's spin doctoring. Okay. Having said that, hopefully this indicates that maybe the ESCOM project execution division and its contractors are beginning to perhaps do their work in a nice, orderly fashion, and they are getting some rhythm, which then augurs well for the future, because more work is going to have to be done on these power stations. But
these are new plants, I mean, fairly new. They were not really completed, and we've spent a lot of money. There are some challenges to these, especially the chimneys, that seemingly it's a design issue. Yeah. Are they likely to be more reliable as they are coming on? In other words, we are not expecting them to be breaking down as frequently as what they call the old fleet.
Yeah. Look, I think we've learned some lessons from this. What has been done at the moment is that the flue gas desulfurization units have been bypassed. Okay? And what they're going to do is redesign that whole unit and make sure that when they do actually connect it back onto the system, that you don't encounter the same problems. So for now, we're going to bypass those flue gas desulfurization units.
Yeah. Is that a complete redesign?
It's almost probably a complete redesign. Not a complete redesign.
Modification.
Modification.
All
yes.
right.
Yeah, it's a mod.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to have to do. But what's going to have to happen in future is that we are also going to have to remove carbon from the emissions. You see, sulfur is not it's not a toxic. It's not a greenhouse gas. Okay, but what it does do is that in the atmosphere it reacts with water and air to form sulfuric acid, H2S. And that's a toxic substance. and it's harmful to people's health and all of that. And that's why it needs to be removed. But given our commitments in terms of reducing carbon emissions, we are going to have to remove the carbon from the flue gas, particularly with emissions from Medupi and Kusile, because those are new power stations. Yeah. So we expect them to be still running way beyond 2050.
Right.
With the other power stations, the older ones, it may not be financially feasible to install carbon capture and storage units on those power stations.
Are we rejoicing too early around this bypass of pollution limitations that the minister has granted ESCOM? I mean, are we likely to be faced with a situation where the minister could be challenged in court and she might need to actually switch off GUSA Unit
3? I think it's a possibility. We have seen these environmental lobby groups taking the government to court and stopping projects. So that's a possibility. However, my view is that as a country, we need to address this problem. It is a problem. And it's not about not being environmentally sensitive, but it's about ensuring that the country is able to execute its plans and make sure that the country is energy secure. If we can't execute projects for the benefit of the country is going to lose out. You know, it's well and good for a small NGO to go to court and stop everything from happening. But in the meantime, people are suffering.
Yeah.
They have no electricity. Businesses are closing down. It's something that we really can't ignore anymore. I think it has to be addressed.
So I wonder if you were in the room, but last week we saw the Minister of Electricity rallying some captains of industry saying we need to now begin to invest in the expansion of the transmission lines in South Africa. Firstly, is that a good call, especially now at this time where we are also facing a question around our generation capacity? Can we focus on both?
Yeah. I am opposed to us spending, firstly, hundreds of billions of rands building transmission lines to renewable energy projects that are far out in the Karoo, when we could be spending that kind of money building generation capacity close to areas that have the grid, and they can be connected to the grid.
Okay, why? Just because of distance?
Well, firstly, what we need now is megawatts, not transmission lines. That's what we need. Secondly, you're connecting renewables that have, for solar, for instance, solar PV, 25% capacity factor. Okay, that means you generate power from those plants 25% of the time. Okay, which means that these transmission lines that you're spending hundreds of billions of rands on,
75% of the time they'll be
75% of the time they won't be utilized.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a huge. It's not a clever decision, especially given our crisis at the moment. We should be spending every little bit of cent we have on things that will put megawatts on the table without much. Secondly, I believe that the IPPs themselves should be paying for the cost to connect because it's part of the project. When you build a factory, the government doesn't buy you trucks to get your product to market. Okay, those transmission lines, the cost of those is part of the project costs, and they should be included in the cost of those IPPs. And when you start doing those calculations, in fact, you realize that these IPP projects are not so cheap. They always tell us that they're the lowest cost option. Yeah. They are not when you actually start taking all of these things into account.
Final question, because we're out of time.
Okay.
these decisions are major decisions.
Yes.
The last time you were on, you said you're worried about the fact that we still don't have a CEO. Now we're hearing questions around whether or not he should be 60 or should be under 50, and I'm not sure how is this helping us and taking us forward. Are these decisions that are critically reliant on having a CEO on board?
Yeah. Okay. So it's actually saddening that it takes us a year, almost a year, to appoint a CEO. Okay. Because these decisions do require a CEO behind them, and of course the board. Okay. So yeah, in terms of the issue that you raise about the age of the CEO, etc., my view is very simple. There you need someone who's got the expertise, both from a technical perspective and from a management and leadership perspective. They must have those. And they must have, obviously, the energy, because it's a demanding job. So you need to be able to push 12, 14, 16 hours a day sometimes.
Sure.
Right. If you've got somebody who has all of that, then you should appoint them as, it doesn't matter whether they're 45 or 55 years old or 60. It doesn't matter. Okay, in my view. So those are my views on that.
Chief, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. As always, explaining this so very clear for us, for all to understand. Energy expert there, Mthunzi Luthuli.